Every time you brush past your plant, run a leaf between your fingers, or move it to dust the shelf, it knows, not in a vague, poetic way, in a real, measurable, chemical way. Within minutes of you touching it, your plant changes what is happening inside its cells, and over time, it physically reshapes how it grows because of you. You probably think of touch as something that happens to you, not to your plant. You feel the leaf just sits there. But that is only because the plant's response is invisible and silent. Underneath, a touch from your hand sets off a cascade so fast and so specific that scientists can watch the plant's genes switch on in real time. And once you understand what that touch actually does, you will realize you have been shaping your plants the whole time without ever knowing it. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how to use your own hands to make a plant grow stronger. The fifth thing touch does is the part that genuinely unsettles people, because it means your plant may be keeping a kind of record. Let's start with what happens the instant you make contact. Picture this. A scientist brushes a tiny leaf with a soft paintbrush. 5 minutes later, inside the plant, something astonishing is already happening. In a Stanford lab in 1990, Janet Bram and Ronald Davis set out to study hormone responses in Arabidopsis, a small weed with a fast life cycle and a simple genome. What they found instead was a shock. The act of touching the plant, just a gentle stroke, flipped a genetic switch. Bram later said that it was the act of touching the plant that was turning the genes on. They did not see this with the naked eye. They saw it on a northern blot, a kind of molecular fingerprint for gene activity. The evidence was a dark band, appearing with eerie precision only in the lanes from touched seedlings. The first sign came at the 5-minute mark. By 20 minutes, the signal peaked, then faded back to normal within an hour. No touch, no band. The response was that specific. The genes they tracked got their own name: TCH1, TCH2, TCH3, and TCH4. TCH stands for touch-induced. The most dramatic, TCH1, codes for a calmodulin protein, a molecular switchboard for calcium signals inside the cell. This was not a slow, subtle drift. It was a rapid, targeted burst, visible on film, triggered by nothing more than a single touch. The plant's response was real, measurable, and fast. So fast that scientists could literally time it with a stopwatch. And it all starts within minutes of your fingertip brushing a leaf. A plant lives rooted in place. It can't run from danger, can't duck behind a rock, can't flee the jaws of a hungry insect. Instead, it listens to every brush, bump, and gust, a living sensor tuned for survival. Out in the wild, touch isn't just an idle event. It is a warning. The slap of a raindrop, the tug of wind, the rough graze of a passing beetle. Each one means stress, damage, or a predator might be near. When a stem flexes in the wind, or a leaf shudders under an animal's nibble, the plant has no time to waste. It triggers the same fast genetic alarms discovered in the lab, but in nature, the payoff is survival. Field ecologists have watched wild plants battered by storms or grazed by animals. Those that sense and respond to these mechanical threats change how they grow. Their stems thicken, their leaves hug closer to the ground. The plant builds itself tougher, shorter, less likely to snap or topple when the next storm hits. This response isn't a slow drift over seasons. It kicks in within minutes, and over days the plant's body reshapes itself. The science calls it thigmomorphogenesis, a mouthful, but at its core it means touch changes form. Plants that ignore these cues risk growing tall and spindly, easy targets for wind or hungry mouths. Those that sense and adapt stand a better chance. Touch in the wild is a signal. Get ready, brace yourself, or be broken. Brush a leaf once, and the plant's internal wiring lights up for an hour. But what happens when you do it again and again? Here is where the story takes a turn. Plants do not just react and forget. Each encounter leaves a trace, a molecular afterimage that does not quite fade. Scientists noticed something odd in the lab. Seedlings brushed every day did not just keep flipping the same genetic switches. their bodies began to change. Petioles, those slender stalks holding each leaf, grew shorter, stems thickened. The whole plant shifted shape, building itself lower and sturdier, as if bracing for whatever might come next. In Arabidopsis, these changes show up in less than a week. A plant that gets brushed or jostled repeatedly stands more compact, less likely to topple in wind or snap under its own weight. The effect is so clear that researchers can measure it with a ruler. It is not a vague influence, it is a visible rewrite of the plant's blueprint, triggered by nothing more than touch. Every gentle contact, every repeated brush, nudges growth in a new direction. What starts as a fleeting chemical spark becomes a real, physical record, etched into the plant's form for days, even weeks. Soon, you will see how this process plays out in time lapse and why it matters for every houseplant you have ever owned. Try this. Take a soft paintbrush and stroke the main stem of your houseplant, slow and steady for 5 to 10 seconds. That's it. Just once a day. Greenhouse growers have used this trick for years. In commercial nurseries, workers or machines brush rows of seedlings every morning. The result isn't subtle. After a week, the plants stand shorter, their stems are noticeably thicker, and the risk of snapping during transplant drops. The difference is visible, ruler measurable, and backed by decades of careful observation. At home, the same routine works for leggy seedlings or floppy stems. Use a natural bristle brush or even your hand, but go gently. Too much force damages tissue. One daily stroke, 5 to 10 seconds, is all it takes. Over days, you'll see sturdier growth. A grower once put it simply, it's like giving the plant a daily challenge. It learns to brace itself. You don't need special tools, and you don't need to guess. The effect is so reliable that some greenhouses set reminders to brush at the exact same time every day. The plant remembers each touch, not with a mind, but with its body. The science behind this is about to get even stranger. Brush a leaf and something electric happens beneath the surface. The plant doesn't have nerves or a brain, but it senses your touch through a hidden network of ion channels, tiny molecular gates called MCA and OSCA. The moment you make contact, these channels snap open. Calcium ions surge into the cells, setting off a wave that races from cell to cell. Scientists have watched this in real time, using fluorescent calcium imaging. The wave sweeps across an entire seedling in under 2 minutes. At the point of touch, the calcium peak flares for about 30 seconds before fading. It's a signal, fast, precise, and unmistakable. This isn't guesswork. Researchers can track the calcium flash as it moves, frame by frame, glowing on their screens. No need for nerves. The plant's own chemistry carries the message, linking that brief moment of contact to a chain reaction that will soon reach the nucleus and flip genetic switches. Every touch you give a houseplant is not just a fleeting spark. It is a tally added to a running total deep inside the plant's cells. Each time your fingers brush a leaf, calcium ions surge, genes flip on, and tiny growth zones in the stem and petiole start to rewrite their instructions. The effect does not fade with the last touch. Instead, these chemical ripples stack up day after day, pushing the plant to build itself differently. The result is more than a reaction. It is a physical biography. A plant that is brushed every morning grows shorter, thicker, and sturdier than one left untouched. The shape you see is not random. It is the sum of every breeze, every bump, every gentle stroke, a living record etched in cellulose and lignin. In some species, the difference is dramatic, in others, subtle. But the principle holds. The final form is a ledger of contact, written in green. If you want proof, try a simple experiment. Take 2 seedlings. Touch one, leave the other alone, and watch them diverge. The plant remembers, not with a mind, but with its body. If you found this as surprising as we did, subscribe for more science that changes the way you see the world. Every brush of your hand triggers real chemical signals. Genes flip, calcium surges, reshaping your plant's future form. Greenhouse growers use this daily to build resilience. Right now, your next touch writes a physical record into living tissue. The line between you and your houseplant isn't as clear as you think. Subscribe for more.